Happy Monday! We've got soccer games to talk about, not just CONCACAF Champions Cup, but also MLS games as well. Welcome to PHOI Union Podcast. We've got Tyler Zulli, JP Zapata, Renee Washington here, coming off of a 2-2 draw to open up MLS play at home at Subaru Park. There's lots of questions. Jazz Fusion, nice to have you in the chat. You're asking them one of the many questions. All these years, and Jim still doesn't know how to use a bench. There we have it. Jazz, you're already bringing the heat. We've got plenty to talk about today, JP, because this past weekend, we had a chance to finally see the Union in MLS play. We were all curious. Of course, so many questions. Andre Blake's status, Jack Elliott's status, how the team was going to look overall. As we talked about with Alex Campbell from CHGO Fire, our sister station, who joined us on Thursday, where we're going to get a fresh Chicago Fire and a tired Philadelphia Union. After watching all of that, I say yes to all the above. Well, I think I got exactly at least what I expected from this game to be. And I don't know about you, but there was a lot to take. I was just kind of watching the game, like making all these mental notes, like, like a lot to take away from the game, a lot that we learned in the early between Saturday's game and even last Tuesday's like one game. So today we'll get into that. We'll talk about the matchup. We'll recap and give updates on injuries, other news around the league, plus, of course, preview to the Tuesday game versus Deportivo Saprissa. So lots to get into, but initial thoughts from Saturday's game for you. What was, I know it was a busy day. You were flipping through channels and watching multiple games. But overall, what was your thoughts on how the season cracked open 2024 in MLS play?
Yeah, Renee, I think like through the first week, and I'm going to throw Saprissa in this as well, I think we learned one thing in particular, that this is still the Philadelphia, and you saw the resiliency yet again. Listen, we don't know what the Chicago Fire are going to be this year. It was only one match, but you found yourself down. You found yourself down again, and yet you found a way to come back, and you walked away with a point. We'll talk about the replacement refs, which, we're bound to have some type of growing pains with replacement refs during match day one. So there was some controversial calls we'll talk about as well. But overall, I think you have to be proud of the team to be resilient. Look, you just played a match Tuesday. You got to go back on Saturday MLS play. We talked about this before. It is difficult, but that's not an excuse. You have to go get those results, and you got the point. And I don't know, right? Maybe if you had some different refs, you might get 3. Just saying.
Well, honestly, the first goal that was called. Okay, so let's break it down. In the first half, not a good first half at all.
Right.
Very sloppy. Very on both sides, for the Union and for the Fire. Now, I expected it from the Fire because it was their first game of the season. And then also, as we had talked about for Chicago, they had so many new pieces, a lot of changes across their roster. For the Union, after having a Tuesday midweek game against Saprissa, get a chance to get some of those like early season cobwebs out a bit. I actually did expect the first half to start off better than it did.
Okay.
I thought that what we saw in the second half was going to be more of what we saw in the first half. And you have to wonder, had we had a full game of that second half performance if this is a 2-2 draw? And then what made it more frustrating, in addition to the fact that we didn't see a lot of substitutions, we only saw one, Ali Bedoya, that came in the second half for Jack McGlynn. The entire game, they're pressing, they're having the better of play, and then Chicago comes down and scores. And then Chicago comes down and scores again. And honestly, I was kind of like, okay, the first goal, soccer. That's classic soccer.
Yep.
You had the better of play, even though it was sloppy. You still... There were no threatening chances. Chicago didn't have a single shot in the entire half until they scored. And that was the only shot they had the entire half. And so, classic that you're attacking, come down and give up a goal. And that was frustrating. And what's up, Renee? Nice to have you here too, friend. And so, I was annoyed at halftime because the Union allowed themselves to go down yet again. First 2 games of the season, both games they are trailing at the half 1-0.
Yeah.
Not the type of identity you want your team to have. You don't want to be a team that's constantly chasing the game. But then They came back out, scored in the first minute. Of course, that goal got called back. I do not think there was enough to overturn that call. I don't agree. I don't agree. If they didn't show us all the VAR angles, we only saw the one. But from that one angle, it was too close because in MLS play, unlike the NFL or some other leagues, they don't do like the line drawn across. They don't isolate players the same way. Like they don't have the ability to add in some of those extra pieces of being able to clearly see if the guy is offside or not. And I don't think it was enough to show he was offside.
Yeah.
And so I disagree with that one. I think Damian Lowe's offside call was absolutely correct. He was clearly offside.
Yes, for sure.
But the first one did not give enough. Plus, you didn't have enough accuracy of knowing when he was in a position offside versus when the ball was played. I think it was too close. But then I also enjoyed the fact that the Union came back. Still were on the attack. It started with Quinn Sullivan. We'll get into Quinn Sullivan because I want to give him his own time. But him, Nate Harriel, Jack, Jose, they were pushing. And to get the equalizer, I think what made me more upset was they gave up a second goal. Like, I don't mind, especially in the early parts of a season, you give up a goal, you're flat, early on. But to give up a second goal after you were complete, like the second half performance was night and day compared to the first half of the Union. So you fully picked things up a notch, fully were on the attack, and still managed to come down and give up late in the game a second goal. And now you have to wait for Daniel Gazdag to score in the 93rd minute to tie things up. And of course, Mikel Ua had what should have been the game-winning goal, missed that, but it shouldn't come down to the last minutes that you're now fighting to walk out of there with at least a point. So as frustrating was to have the first goal happen, the second goal is what really had me like, wait a minute.
10 minutes left.
Wait a minute now. You've been completely dominating this game. Chicago was chasing, completely dominating, and you still give a second. And I know Rainiel's dropping in the snakes. Jillian's dropping in. Andre saves that second one. Ivan, you're saying you've been really impressed with Quinn's performance this season. He's really hit the ground running there. We got to talk about Quinn specifically. I think, I will give Oliver Zemla, definitely in my opinion, for both goals, got caught off guard. I know Jim was talking about it. Most times when keepers do not have a lot of action, they tend to fall asleep. It's the same thing with backs. Backs and keepers have to find a way to stay engaged because when your team's attacking is honestly when you're very susceptible to that fluke transition goal. So I felt like and even for the first goal, because the first goal was right over his head. He was a couple steps off his line where you shouldn't ever get at 6'4".
Yeah,
you shouldn't get chipped over the middle. It wasn't an upper 90 shot. It wasn't a bent ball into the back post or near post. It was right over the top, a driven shot over his head where he was caught out of position. So I agree. I think Andre might say both of those, to be honest. But my concern about the goals, and I wrote this down, and I said this on Thursday. And I wrote it down again because I'm like, we just talked about this on Thursday.
Yeah.
The few chances that Chicago had were chances where they had players wide open in goal-scoring positions. We saw Damian Lowe and Jacob Glesson doing a good job occupying their forwards. Nate was tracking back. Kai's tracking back. The midfielders, watch that second goal again, especially, but the first goal as well. Watch where Quinn Sullivan is. Watch where Jack McGlynn is. Watch where Jose's at. Watch where Gazdag's at. They're not matching up defensively, and they're leaving players. So now what was happening, and we talked about this after Saprissa, is the back four is getting caught between do I step and pressure the ball or do I hold with the forwards? They're not stepping, and they're allowing shots from distance that shouldn't happen. So the Union have got to figure this out because it started, and I remember saying this against FC Cincinnati. I remember saying this last year in the postseason. Stop giving up shots from distance because you're not tracking back. Defensively, I don't know if you caught that. Yeah. There were stretches where the middies just were not working back on defense and getting matched up, and you're leaving players wide open.
Yeah,
Can't
no.
have that.
I want to go first with your points about the goals that happened. So, look, in life, just like in soccer, you can be doing everything right, but if you just turn your head away, if you take your foot off the gas pedal, that's what's going to happen. You're going to find yourself down 1-0. You're going to find yourself down 2-1. And that's really what I felt like I saw there, Renee. Because I did feel I saw a lot of spurts of good play, especially defensively. But it's just those instances where you take the foot off the gas pedal. That's pretty much what happens. On the Fernandez goal, or Gutierrez goal, I'm sorry. That was a great shot. I mean, fantastic shot. Kudos to him. And this is there's a lot of young players in this match alone that really caught eyes around the league. Great shot by him. But like you mentioned, why is El Brujo giving him all that space? Why?
Mm-hmm.
Where is Harriel? That's the right wing right there. Where is Harriel? Damian Lowe. It is what it is. I mean, you would want to have them come up and help, but at the end of the day, El Brujo and Harriel should not allow for Gutierrez to have that easy type of shot. So I'm in agreement with you that to me is just a moment where the Union took the foot off the gas pedal, and Gutierrez had one of the best goals of match day one here in the MLS, and that absolutely cannot happen. And on the second one, Fabian Herber's former Union player turns garbage into goal, and that can't happen either. And look, yes, I do agree with you, Jillian, that Andre makes that save on the second one, but why are we putting our essentially rookie goalie in a tough spot like that? So to me, I thought overall they played solid defensively, but you cannot have those mishaps because that's what happens. It doesn't matter how well you played for the entire match. If you take your foot off the gas pedal for one moment, you're going to allow 2 goals to happen just like that. And how ironic is it here, Renee, that the season last year, it ends in a lack of a VAR review. And then match day one, we have a goal get called back on a controversial offsides there, which I'm agreeing with you. I don't know how you turn that one back, but unfortunately it did. But they did find a way to come back and get the win. And I think to me, that is what's the important part. I want to mention Zemla as well. You sold me on him when we were talking about him over the past couple episodes. And you know what? Those 2 goals are unfortunate. Yeah, the first one he probably should have stopped. You can't allow a goal like that to get past. And yes, Andre Blake obviously saves that. And on the second one as well, Andre probably saves as well. But Renee, in injury time in the second half, Oliver Zemla makes a huge save that probably saves the point. And that was one of the last plays of the match there. And to me, if you're talking about Zemla in his debut, I thought it was solid. I didn't expect him to come in here looking like Andre Blake and stopping and looking like a brick wall, but it's good to see him out there. He got all those nerves out of the way. And look, we're gonna rely on him tomorrow because Andre is not going to be available for leg 2. So I thought Zemla looked pretty solid. I think that going forward, I'm hoping that he gets those jitters out the way because I thought that save in injury time showed more to me than the full, 108 minutes that we played of soccer on Saturday night.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, and I hate to have to harp on one thing. It's so early in the season, and I want to just stress, like, I've been there in those early parts of the year. You're still figuring out a lot of things, and especially without Andre Blake, who's such a big part of this team, who is that voice, he's that consistent presence where you know what you're going to get from him. I do think that this is a team that's obviously going to be without Andre. You can tell the difference, I should say. And I thought Zemla, like you mentioned, that save that he made in stoppage time was incredible. Even on the second goal, he gets the touch. Now, I would have loved him to be able to hold that instead of giving up the rebound. But I'm watching it again because I was like, I know I'm not crazy, and I should have did this before. I did this Saturday, but it's been a couple days.
Right.
So both goals, you have the same situation, and I should have taken a screenshot of this to show on the show, but it's fine. If you guys want to look at it, go back and check it out. In the second goal, you have the Fire on the attack. They have 5 players in the 18.
Mm-hmm.
The Union have 9 players, that are in the picture. So 5v9, then a 6 Fire player joins in. The Union's midfielders stop tracking back. You do have Jose's in the back defending as well. Quinn's lurking, but the midfielders slowly stop, where they stop retreating back. The backs are pressuring. Damian Lowe gets beat. Jacob Elliott's not matched up. Nate's on the back post with actually 2 guys, Herbert being one of them, 2 guys so it's 2v1 on the back post. These are the types of things that in the early parts of the season, you still shouldn't have happen.
Right.
Because I can understand your chemistry being off, your touch being off, your fitness being a step behind. But especially with the exact same 11 from last year, there's no reason why you should not have guys tracking back. And what makes it worse is you actually have the numbers. This is not a situation where they were a player down or 2. They have the numbers, yet just did not pick up the players. And you allow your keeper, as you talk about leaving him on an island, your rookie keeper makes a great first save. And because on the back post, there's 2 guys that are in a goal-scoring position, Jacob Glesnes slides for the first one, but you're still not out of the fire because you're not matching up. So I know defensively, we've talked a lot about how that's the staple of this team. That's where their leadership comes from. That's where a lot of the guys that have logged the most minutes have come from. But to me, that was actually extremely frustrating. That second goal was that frustration moment of, wow, you guys are actually creating on offense, giving the better of chances. And if you had just marked up, if you just got back on defense and got organized quicker, that's not a second goal. And now you don't have to worry about chasing the game again. So
Yep.
I think looking at their 4 goals they've given up now, because of one, we saw they scored on themselves. But even that's 4 goals that all come from defensive breakdowns where it's more about the Union falling asleep, getting caught flat, disconnected versus this is not an offensive goal where the Fire beat someone 1v1 and had this incredible finish. It was almost given to them in that sense. You didn't make them earn it. You can't do that at this stage of any team. I don't care who you're playing in the MLS. You cannot give guys opportunities like this to score.
Yeah, no, and when you know that your main goalie is not there, especially Andre Blake's a different type of animal when you're talking about your starting goalkeepers in this league. But if you know Andre's not out there, you got to step up your game with knowing that you got essentially a rookie goalkeeper back there. And I'm loving Jillian's comment, by the way. He was better than Bendick. Yeah, a lot of people were better than Bendick at that point last year. But no, it was interesting because, I talked about the intensity. I felt like the intensity was lacking at times through the match. And look, they just got done playing an important match on Tuesday. So I guess I kind of do get it. But look, we're trying to get as many points, especially this early on in the season when you have CCC. I know you're obviously prioritize CCC. You need to try to get as many points as you can in regular season play.
Mm-hmm.
And fact of the matter is Saturday was a match that you could have gotten some points. In that first half, I thought it was interesting because Chicago had an interesting game plan. They were attacking those wide spaces, going on that low block counterattack. And Kai and Nate were leaving those spaces open. Salise and Gutierrez were taking advantage of those opportunities. Salise had Kai Wagner a couple of times. It's funny because the past 2 years, Chris Mueller typically lines up on that right side for Chicago. Mueller's had some opportunities on Kai Wagner as a goal from 22. I'm thinking on the top of my head that still gives me nightmares. But, we talked about Gutierrez as a young player who obviously this year he's trying to make that next step. And so the Union got to do a better job, especially in this league. You're going to see some better teams with better wingers or wing play. So that's something that I noticed that Chicago in the early parts were definitely trying to expose those wings.
Yeah.
But then they found out real quick that, Glazes and Lowe are down there, and it's not going to be easy with those crosses.
Well, I mean, I know Jack just saying in the chat, you're bringing up Jack Elliott being important, and we've got to talk about that too. But when I look at what the Union are struggling around, the goal that Gutierrez scores, it's 1v5. He had the ball. He gets past, I believe it's Jose. That's the first person he got by. It might have actually been Jack. Now that I'm thinking about just where it was on. No, it was Jose. Gets past Jose. You have 5 Union players around him. He's able to get his shot off and finish. And there's no reason. Actually, let me double check that. Yeah, no, there's no reason why you should be able to get that shot off. It's not even like this is just both goals are broken plays. So as important as Jack Elliott and Andre Blake are, and I'll be honest, I think Damian Lowe's doing a really good job at center back right now. I don't think that it's because of him that they've given up these goals in the early parts of the season. I actually think it's just as a unit, the breakdowns that they're having defensive as a team. But even without Andre Blake, you still should have been able to get, if not a clean sheet, maybe you give up one of those 2 goals. There's no reason you should give up both goals. But as you mentioned on the flank, that is where the strength of this team has come from. And it's been very exciting to see. And I know you guys are talking about, Ivan, you're talking about Quinn Sullivan and how well he played. You also were mentioning Jesus Bueno, who would take that right center midfield spot, but it seems like Quinn has something to say about it, as he's that kid's definitely playing like a stud, as you mentioned. Quinn Sullivan was my MVP of the game, hands down. Look, there were a few different players that played very well. Nate Harriel was one of them, even though these goals did happen on his side. But I feel like Quinn Sullivan, if he doesn't play at that next level the way that we saw Saturday, this team doesn't tie. I think they lose that game. I mean, he directly had a part. We saw it in Saprissa. We saw it again Saturday. He has had a part in almost every single goal, whether it's directly getting the assist or setting up the play or getting the rebound that keeps the play alive. He's been involved in some capacity by just going. Yeah. He's playing aggressive. He's making runs. Him and Nate have been working so well on that right side, overlapping and just creating. I know Jim was saying that next level development for him is knowing when to pass versus when to shoot versus when to dribble, being able to make decisions. A lot of times young players slow down, and we saw that. He had a beautiful end line opportunity, did not get the service off. It kind of tripped up on his feet because it kind of slowed down a bit. And that's where you have to you beat your defender, keep going, get that, drive the ball across, pick out a target, finish. But I will say he's the only one that I feel like consistently, the last 2 games you can point to, has been playing at a high level, playing hard, working hard. I just want to see him work a little bit better on defense sometimes. Working hard into the attack, and it's contagious.
Yeah.
Daniel Gazdag feeding off it. Uwa, who struggled in the first half, struggled against Saprissa, finally comes out in the second half, and I finally felt like there is Uwa. But it was because I felt like Quinn kind of was the spark to set it all off.
Yeah, he set that up perfectly for him. Yeah, I want to take a second to talk about Quinn and Jack, but let's start off with Quinn first because, like you said, through the 2 first matches, he's been the best player by far out of all the players here for the Union. And it's just, like I talked about during last week's episode on Thursday, he's married himself to this position. You know, the past couple of years, what we've been talking about with Quinn is, where do you play him? Like, because like he's got this creative ability, he's pretty tenacious, he's got this confidence for a young player, but like we tried him at the forward, it didn't really work. Tried him at the 10, didn't really work there. But we also tried him in the right shuttle midfielder as well, didn't really work. But now this year, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's maturity as well. That's always a factor too. But he has married himself to this position, and I think what works so well, and that's why I want to get into Jack too, is that Quinn provides in the attack. He does a great job of just being that extra outlet in the attack. You mentioned him working with Nate Harriel on the outside is really big, but he's not scared. And Jim always talks about giving his players that flexibility. He wants them to take those risks and those gambles. Quinn will go all the way up top there in the attack, and he will contribute. And on the other side with Jack also had a really good game. Jack does a good job of setting up the play from the back. From the back line to the front, where Quinn does a good job essentially from the midfield to the front, like those 2 forwards. And so that's why I feel like they complement each other so well. And when this Union attack has been stale, it's because you're not getting that proper shuttling performance from both your shuttle midfielders here. So Jack and Quinn have been so important, not only for the production on the attack, but Renee, what do we talk about before the season? We needed to see where these young kids of our youth academy is going to help us in 2024. Like we talked about Mark and Brendan back in 2020, how valuable they were for that supporter shield winning team. We needed those type of players for this team to go far again, because listen, it's been that long since we had kids help us out on the senior team. And you talk about Jack, you talk about Quinn being able to be important parts of that diamond. Nathan Harriel, he's going to have his time, don't you dare worry. But Nathan Harriel, 2 straight starts away from Olivier Mbaizo too. So this midfield has its 2 missing pieces, its consistent pieces, because these kids have finally taken over those positions. They're men now. You can't call them kids no more.
No. Well, they're still kids. But no, they are maturing for sure, though. And I know in the chat, you guys are saying various things. Ivan, you're saying Quinn was also your MVP Saturday, impressed in Costa Rica as well. He is playing dynamic. And that's, the midfielder, as a former midfielder myself, I always pay attention to that. Your role as the midfield is to be the playmaker. You are linking your team into the attack. You're making runs. You're helping to generate opportunities. You've got to be confident in just going. And obviously at 19 years old, that confidence was going to take time to develop. But I feel like we finally are getting Quinn at that level. And Jose, as you're mentioning, he's trying to get his butt on a plane for Paris 2024. Like Quinn he's not just out here trying to prove that he deserves to be a starter and to be, someone that's a top player on this team. He's got some bigger goals, and it's showing because Quinn is consistently, you see him having fun. It looks like he's playing hard. That shot from distance that just sailed wide of the back post. He hit it perfectly, a nice knuckleball back post. A thing of beauty. And for Quinn and Nate to be able to help, like we've talked so much about Kai Wagner and this team, just depending on set pieces and needing that spark, like you mentioned, Quinn has been that dynamic piece to the attack. Him and Nate, honestly, on the right side especially, because other than that, like when you look at the first half to the second, the biggest difference, first half, the Union it was a lot of, and I remember saying this as a player, my parents used to tell me this all the time. If you're spending all your time complaining at the referees and you're on the ground and your hands are always up in the air, you're not playing soccer. You can't play. And I get it. There were some missed calls. They could have been called fouls, whatever. Like officials, and I don't care if it's replacement refs or the real refs or whatever else is going on. Whoever is officiating is not going to get it right. But you have to make sure you're not allowing the game to come down to calls. And you're spending so much energy arguing fouls. and Julian Carranza and Mikel Ua and Jose. Everyone was getting all chirpy, 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 and no one was just playing soccer. Second half, you noticed we didn't see as much of that complaining, except for the 2 goals that got called back, rightfully so. But it wasn't as much complaining about fouls. They were just going on and playing. Just play hard, take care of business, and don't even worry about who's officiating.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Another thing you guys need to take care of, ladies and gentlemen, is one of our dear sponsors today is Coors Light. Guys, what are you drinking here for the games? Obviously, we're in the middle of Union season. We're obviously with the Sixers and Flyers right now. Phillies are right around the corner. So what are you guys going to drink here for your tailgates or for the games? Well, I'm going to choose Coors Light. As we get closer to the summer, I'm more of a craft beer guy, but listen, there's only so many craft beers that I can do. I just like Coors Light because when it's blue, you know it's cold. You know it is time to drink one, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll be drinking my Coors Light tomorrow night as the Union take on Deportivo Saprissa in Leg 2. I'll be having my Coors Light. I highly recommend that you guys grab one as well. And right now, ladies and gentlemen, you know what's the best part of Coors Light? You can have it delivered right to your door. What better than that, ladies and gentlemen? Head on over to CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer to get your delivery here today of Coors Light and see all the different products that they have. Again, that is CoorsLight.com/PHLY soccer. Celebrate responsibly. Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. Thank you again to our friends over at Coors Light.
And while you're being responsible, be responsible as you plan for your future. So over at Mortgage CS, they do a really good job. Mortgage CS stands for Mortgage Concierge Service, a white glove service located right here in Philadelphia. But if you're not an affiliate and you're tuned into our show and you're watching back or listening back on podcast platforms, Mortgage CS is licensed coast to coast in California, Colorado, various states all around. So in our area, it's Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, but also licensed in some other spots as well. So you can definitely take advantage of Mortgage CS in any state around the country because they will do a great job of working to empower you, educate you, make sure you have as much information as possible as you're going through your house buying process. And they want to help their clients find ultra competitive rates. At Mortgage CS, their focus is on you, not their own bottom dollar. They're focused on your financial picture and finding deals that work best for you and your family. In addition to that, Mortgage CS also offers refinancing options. So if you're looking to refinance, they have options to help with rate and term refinances for a rate payment reduction or cash out refinances to tap into home equity. And that way they can also help you make smart choices in your high interest debt or funding home projects, education, whatever it is you're trying to refinance for. So with the spring purchase market heating up, and as people are actively right now looking to buy homes as that first time home buyer, looking to buy that dream house, looking to get the beach house, whatever it may be, over at Mortgage CS, they do a great job of helping you be ready when rates drop, making sure you're prepared, and providing you opportunities to stand out amongst the competitors to make the strongest offers possible. So check out Mortgage CS. When you hear them, the word mortgage, we want you to think of Mortgage CS. We want you to think of Ben and Alec, their CEO, Ben, his phone number right here on your screen. You can reach out at 267-391-7425. That's 267-391-7425. You can also reach out via email at ben@mortgagecs.com and check them out at mortgagecs.com/PHLY to get started. Now, this advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval and certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. You can visit mortgagecs.com for more information. All right, so you guys are in the chat talking about, well, yes, you do need to be over 21 to drink. But Jazz, radio, and then Jazz, you're mentioning you've got to read the room. The ref was letting them play. Yeah, going back to the officials, obviously we've all been following right now the stories around the officials across the league because there's still a process being worked through, I should say, when the referees association is still trying to figure out, with the league, the logistics of contracts and pay and different things that they're working through. So as of now, we are still getting replacement referees. But like I said, it doesn't matter who's refereeing. It could be a parent or a fan out there refereeing for all I care. You've got to be able to play through it. And so of course, obvious one is we didn't see Jack Elliott. Mm-hmm. We didn't see Andre Blake. We know Andre Blake's still out dealing with that abductor strain. We saw him go down against Saprissa, which was concerning. He, of course, was still in there and then just had Wasn't able to take goal kicks and things like that. But
Right.
I'm concerned about that. I am concerned because injuries are always something that can make or break your season.
It's also the
Especially
same
without
injury he had
depth.
last year around the same time too, which I
Bingo.
do understand. I think for me, Renee, I'm gonna have to wait for next week, see what Jim does say. Because now if he misses another week, I'm like, okay, now it is
Yeah.
time to be concerned. But no, I mean, like, on the flip side, obviously it's early enough, so you're in a good spot. But Zemla is gonna be in a tough spot here tomorrow. So Tuesday or Saturday, I'm sorry, was a good test. But it's going to be a real test because, as we all know, Saprissa is going to be gunning in here, looking to upset
Oof,
here,
yes.
and they have some work to do. But also they are the away team, so remember the away goal is going to be really big. But I thought Zemla in his performance on Saturday, I thought it was a great way of getting the feet wet because, as we all know, getting called up to the pro leagues like that it could be nerve wracking for sure. But Zemla, I thought overall, he bounced back after those goals, and I'm curious to see how he will look on tomorrow's match. But what I wanted to ask you,
Actually, one last thing before you move on is it's a great point you bring up. That final save he made in stoppage time in itself,
Huge.
knowing that he's going to have to play again Tuesday, that's a huge save. He ends on a high note after giving up 2 goals. Very frustrating for sure. But he ends on a high note and now can walk away saying, you know what, at least I kept us from losing that game with that incredible save he made in stoppage time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yes, Jillian, it was an interesting called game in general.
It is, but I hate to be that person because I used to argue with referees all the time, but
I see what you're saying.
I do not ever let that be. You cannot let that be the reason.
Right.
Like the Union goals getting called back, because I still don't agree with the first one that got called back. You still have the ability and should have won that game. That's not the referee's fault that there were guys wide open in the box. That's not the referee's fault that they were, leaving players open on rebounds. So I agree that the referees missed a lot. And there were times I was like, oh, how do you miss that? But Union, how do you miss that? How do you leave guys wide open? So it's hard. It's frustrating because yet again, here we are, as you mentioned, frustrated about the fact that officials changed the outcome of the game. But how about Philadelphia Union? You changed the outcome of the game.
I like that.
And you find a way to get the win. But yeah, I mean, overall, JP, as before we get into our preview of Saprissa, because we'll button this conversation up, we can talk about recapping game 1 of the MLS forever. It is only week 1 for the MLS and in general for the Union. It's only week 1. There were some fun, interesting facts, I should say, that I found around the league. So last year, across MLS play, road teams won about 1 in every 5 matches.
Okay. And
this year, in the first 14 games, only one road team won. One road team won. But then also on top of that, it came out, they were like pulling different numbers. All 7 teams who played in CONCACAF Champions Cup games midweek went winless. 6 of those teams had a tie and 1, New England, lost on the road, of course.
Okay.
So of that, as I was like looking at the bigger picture, the league is so competitive. It's really hard to win on the road, which is why you would have loved to have seen the Union get that home victory, lock in 3 points. But 6 of the 7 teams that played in CONCACAF Champions Cup games midweek drew and had a tie. The Union, of course, being one of them. So it also just kind of put things in perspective because as frustrating as it is, it's Chicago Fire. You should win that game if you're the Union. Around the league, a lot of teams dealt with that. I know Jazz are saying in the chat, better not blame tired legs. In addition to Andre Blake getting a little bit older, JP, Jim also only used 1 substitution.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Ali
one thing
Bedoya.
I brought up before the game when the lineups came out was that, that was the only change. That was Andre Blake was out. I understand it's the second match that you're playing in 2024, but like, I don't know, like why not just rotate it like a little bit? Like why not put Mbaizo in there? Why not put Bueno in there? Why not put like Chris Donovan in there? To me, like I get it, and I know someone put the comment in there about Jim's lack of substitutions, and like I know like we all have fun with it, but right now it's not necessarily as important. But when you get into those later months,
Bingo.
the summertime, Leagues Cup is in play, you're gonna need that rotation. Like Jazz Fusion says, we can't blame tired legs, but if you're gonna keep running this lineup for 5 straight matches, we're going to be here before the summer comes and we're going to already have tired legs. And we're going to be here for shows talking about tired legs. And we talked about before the season, that cannot be an excuse anymore because you had a full off season to prepare for this. So it is interesting. I don't want to overblow that part of it, but Jim, again, not rotating after the first match. So.
And I think exactly as you mentioned, you have options that allow you to have the same level. There's no, if you have Mbaizo out there, listen, I agree Nate Harriel played fantastic. But it's not just about right now. It's about long term. Nate Harriel, Quinn Sullivan, especially the younger players, I feel like as an older veteran, you understand the longevity of the season. And I can say this from experience. You know how to manage yourself where you're still playing at a high level. You're not saving anything by any stretch,
right.
But you know how to manage and the routine and how to keep your body fresh and how to keep your legs fresh. You don't really know that as a youngster. And then it's also mentally very taxing because every game, you know, you're still trying to prove yourself. You're still trying to earn your role on the team. So mentally, it also just becomes that much more of a wear and tear on you. So to keep guys fresh, and then on the reverse, and I feel like I always find myself saying this every once in a while with teams in the early parts of their year, you never know who you're going to need. So why not give someone like Mbaizo early minutes in the early parts of the season like this? You don't know if you're going to need him an outside back.
Yeah.
Ali's different. He's had plenty of minutes. But even up top, maybe there's like a Chris Donovan or Jesus Bueno. He's a great guy you can rotate in, and there's no drop off. He's not going to be at the same level as Quinn or Jack, but if you have him in your starting lineup or Jose's getting a rest, you're still going to be able to play at a high level. I'm not saying equal opportunity for everybody where everyone gets playing time and we're just going to rotate guys. It's not that at all, but give chances to other players. And Ali Bedoya being the only substitution the entire game, that's not okay. And I know Jim was saying after the game, you know, our sports and performance department has done a really good job. Everybody's very fresh.
Yeah.
You know, we're a lot more fit than I thought we would be.
There's still human beings out there.
Everybody's fresh until they're not.
Yeah.
Because at some point it's going to catch up to them. You have a Tuesday, Saturday, Tuesday. You have 3 games in 1 week. It doesn't get any easier from here. Give these guys rest when you can there's no reason to force them to play so many minutes so early, knowing how long the season is.
Yeah, I mean, like I think too, just like creativity as well when it comes to these lineups. Like one thing I want to point out that Kevin Kincaid brought up on Twitter that, you know, on that El Brujo assist for the game tying goal, it was a great run and a great cross by him. And it's funny because before he came to Philly with Zula FC in Venezuela, he did play some fullback back in Venezuela. Yep. He did play a lot of all over the midfield as well. Like, you know, there's been times like, you know, you talked about, you know, you never know until you need it. Like last year, you traded Andre Pereira, and then all of a sudden the midfield starts crumbling with injuries. And so, like, that's like one of those moments, like, El Brujo, like, why not try him as a show midfield? But I'm talking about, like, just being creative in general with moving around and rotating the pieces. Because, like, I look at the midfield right now. Obviously, you have Bueno, you have Bedoya as backups. We're still waiting for Leon Flock. But I think just in general, some creativity can go a long way. But rotation is going to be extremely important here, Renee. We're going to need that going forward.
Yeah, you do. And you have to make sure you're not overly relying on certain guys too much too soon.
Yeah.
You know, I know Jazz, you mentioned in the chat, someone like Chris Donovan or Jeremy Raffanello, you know, those types of players, AARP, Ollie's really funny, actually. Those types of young players, get them minutes early, get them some, and it's not confidence and stuff like that is not built in game. I believe it is truly built in practice. But I feel like what at least I've seen from preseason and so far is these guys have earned the opportunity, even if it's the last 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be they're going to start the game. I don't think the Union drastically needed to change their starting lineup. I'm fine with keeping the same 11. Of course, Andre is out, so Zemla is the only change. But I also feel like get to the second half, late in the game, maybe you bring in 1 or 2 other guys and just give some fresh legs and just give them some minutes and just give them a chance. Why not? Especially knowing you have to turn around and play again on Tuesday. So I do think, you know, overall, and I hope the plan isn't to just stick with this group. I remember criticizing the U.S. women's national team because they had the exact same issue. They go down into Australia. They're playing in the World Cup. They play the same 11, 12 players game after game after game, and then you need somebody else. and you have nobody else to depend on. So you don't want to wait until it's game time and you need it to now have to depend on people. You want to be proactive. But you know where else you can be proactive ahead of game time? That's with the Game Time app. Oh, yeah. So the Game Time app allows you to be able to browse your seats and tickets through for anything, concerts, comedy shows, games. So you don't have to wait until it's game time to be scrambling. You can proactively buy your tickets in advance. You can download the app today. Use the code PHLY to be able to get $20 off of your purchase. They make it a lot easier for you to be able to buy your tickets. They allow you to be able to see where your seats are, so that way you have an idea of where you're going to be located before you even get to the event. And then when you show up, it's that much easier because right on your phone, you open the app, your tickets are right there. You don't need to worry about Wi-Fi issues or printing out copies of your tickets. You have your tickets on your phone to be able to show at the door, scan, and get in. So again, download the Game Time app today. Use that code PHLY to be able to get $20 off your purchase to make it a lot easier and a lot more fun as you're buying tickets. I can't guarantee the game won't be stress-free, but buying tickets with the Game Time app can definitely be. Oh, that rhymes.
Renee is our MC here, ladies and gentlemen. And speaking of keeping it easy, we got another sponsor here today that makes your life easier as far as your belly goes, ladies and gentlemen. That is Bagels & Co. Brooklyn-style bagels made with that Philly love that we love so much. And with this world that we're living in with inflation, I know, ladies and gentlemen, I'm dealing with it as well. Well, that's where Bagels & Co. comes into place because we're talking huge bagels with a large variety, 15 to 20 different types of bagels, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, we just got done Valentine's Day. We got St. Patty's Day, so keep an eye on their St. Patty's Day bagels and all their fun stuff. Largest cream cheese variety, 30 different flavors of cream cheese and schmears. You cannot go wrong. And again, they are affordable. That's the important part. In this inflation world we're living in, ladies and gentlemen, that is the important part there. So, ladies and gentlemen, go find your local Bagels & Co. right now. Head on over to thebagelsandco.com/store locator to find your local Bagels & Co. Let them know that PHLY sent you. And guys, we got you covered with some good eats here as well. So thank you again to our sponsor here at Bagels & Co.
Yes, and thank you guys that are tuned in. Jazz, Ivan, Rainiel, Jose, who else has been here? Jillian, who as you guys are trickling in, make sure you smash that thumbs up button. Join the conversation. Let us know your thoughts as we're talking through, looking back on this weekend, but also looking ahead, because not too long from now, the Philadelphia Union are getting ready for the next game, CONCACAF Champions Cup Leg 2 versus Deportivo Saprissa. But JP, there have been some notable results around the league. Let's do those first. Let's just hit on some of those other games that have happened around the league, because we definitely saw a lot of interesting things
for sure
in week 1 of MLS play. Listen, we are back. Cucho Hernandez is back also. Lifted Columbus, the defending champs, knocked off Atlanta 1-0. Listen, they got things going from the jump. Also, LAFC, and I was watching that game. That was a wild game. LAFC beat Seattle 2-1. LAFC looked a little scary, but it's only week 1, so it's fine. I'm not panicking or anything. Seattle did at least make it a game. They were down 2-0, and then they were able to get a goal. De La Vega had a goal there, but LAFC's goals they finished were beautiful. Nice first time volley. Oh, it was nice. It was great. It was great. And then some others we saw, as we mentioned, New England Revolution, one of those teams that had a CONCACAF Champions Cup game last week that lost. The only team actually that had a CCC game and lost. And they lost to DC United 3-1. That was the
upset of the week right there.
That was a wild game. That kind of had me wondering, and I try not to, as I keep overanalyzing week 1, I'm trying not to overanalyze week 1. But 3-1 is like, that's a convincing loss. That's not a 1-0 you lose on like a fluke goal.
Yeah, and like you said, it is early on, but like I always say, Renee, if you have an identity, if you have structure, you're gonna be a formidable team. And Troy Lazine, I thought that's what he was gonna bring to DC, and this is probably what we're gonna probably see early on. They're not going to win every game, but they might be a tougher outing this year than we thought they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was interesting. I know I didn't have a lot of expectations for DC United. I thought this was going to be a year of just like chaos and fixing, and it still can very much be that year of righting the ship and stuff. But yeah, DC United looked a little bit better than I expected against New England.
Just clean things up with your fans. That's all I'm going to say.
Exactly. Then we did see another draw, Montreal and Orlando City, scoreless draw there. Mm-hmm. And then some other results that have happened as well, like Minnesota knocked off Austin 2-1. But another one that jumped out at me, that Sporting Kansas City, Houston Dynamo game, 1-1 draw. Of course, the Union faced Sporting Kansas City this upcoming weekend. So I always like to keep an eye on who they're going to be playing shortly. So, yeah, I mean, we are back. MLS is back.
Full back. You had Phil Neville getting a 4-1 win against our friends over in Colorado. That's a big one because a lot of people were skeptical of Phil going to Portland after his Miami stint. But, I mean, Portland is still Portland, Renee. That's what we learned as well. And a lot of
goals scored early on there. That was a high-scoring game pretty quickly in that first half. So, yeah, that in itself, I mean, to see them jump out the way that they did. Portland, another team to keep an eye on that also has been making some moves this offseason, may have been one that's a little bit quieter for people, but they've been making a lot of moves. So, yeah, I mean, I always enjoy this early part of the season. You're getting a sense of what these teams are going to look like, how their offseason moves pan out, how their youngsters come into the mix. You know, it's an exciting time. And with that, Jazz is saying the Galaxy look good. Shout out to John McCarthy and the LA Galaxy because they were looking pretty good.
They're fun this year.
Yeah. They might be a little bit more, might be better to what the LA Galaxy has been in the past because last season was not so good.
Structure and identity. It's a crazy thing.
That's something.
And yeah, so for Greg Vanney, he's finally got some players that he can build around. And so hopefully for the Galaxy, look, I know there's like a certain fan base that hate the LA Galaxy, but if you're an MLS fan, especially you've been a fan since like the 2010s, like the Galaxy are an important club to our league. The history speaks for itself. So I kind of like to see them still do well.
Yeah.
But if we meet them in the cup, we're going to beat them for sure.
For sure.
But it is good to see the Galaxy do well. And yes, there was a lot of pink shirts in Carson, California.
It was packed. It looked like an Inter Miami home game. And Ivan, you're saying that Suarez looked washed yesterday. I hate to say it. Listen, we know he's on a 1-year deal. He is older. He's definitely on the decline of his career. But Messi and Miami showed you cannot allow them to linger. That's twice now that Inter Miami's been able to crawl out of result. When you are LA Galaxy had the better play, even with the packed house of all Inter Miami fans, had the better play, should have won the game and allowed Inter Miami to just linger, and they were able to score late. But I know we talked about in the show before, JP, Inter Miami is showing us they're going to struggle too. They are their team is dependent on the veterans that already have a lot of mileage on the tank, and their defense and depth is not actually what it should be.
Not a lot of depth on that team at all, and that's what they're going to have to rely on. But they put themselves in that. But I mean, I don't know if you heard, but you know, Don Garber was at that match talking about it as well. They're talking about roster rules and anything we can do to make sure Miami puts together a good roster, right, Don? Yeah. Don,
yeah. All right, let's get back to the boys in blue because as you guys are talking about, we're excited for leg 2. Definitely looking forward to the second half, Jazz. I am also. It's a chance to qualify for the CONCACAF Champions Cup, the round of 16. The Union did set themselves up. It would have been so much better if they were up 3-1, of course, versus 3-2. But it's okay because at least they're up. It could be worse. Could definitely be worse.
Definitely could be worse.
But with that, going up against Saprissa, both teams played this past Saturday. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest differences is that the Philadelphia Union played the exact same guys that played in leg 1 on Saturday. The only change, of course, being Andre Blake, and then that late substitution for Ali Bedoya coming in for Jack McGlynn. Whereas on the other side, Saprissa was going up against the number 6 team in league play, Guanacasteca.
Ooh.
And it was another both teams tied, a 0-0 tie for them, but they had $5. Think of all the things that have 5. Doesn't Subway also have a 5 thing too?
Number 5 will
Wait,
always
$5 foot long is the Subway. And then there's something else that's 5 deal. 5 is an important number, guys. Is the point I'm trying to get to. 5 different guys, JP, that were in the starting lineup. 5 of 11 is nearly half. All you needed was a half of another person. You're nearly at half of your, that was a joke because you can't have half a person. Half of your starting lineup was someone different from the starting 11 against the Philadelphia Union.
I will say, keep in mind, Saprissa is in the middle of their season. However, I still am in agreement with you because I'm not even asking to have just 5 stars, like just 2. Like Mbaizo and Bueno.
Zemla counting as 1.
Right. Well, obviously you have to go with Zemla because of Andre's injuries, but like they obviously had to go a little heavier with the rotation because they're in the middle of the season, but that's an important part because of what we're talking about. We have a tough stretch here, and if you're going to win this, you're going to keep going on the CCC play. So it's just an interesting direction to go and with this early on in the season. And I mean, Renee, who's to say we don't see the exact same lineup from Saturday that we will tomorrow? And personally, I think you should go a little more defensively here. If I mean,
What changes are you making?
the thing is like I don't like to play conservative, but you're up essentially because you got 3 goals on the road, so that really puts you in a solid spot. So I'm looking to just draw. Like just whatever you can do to just hold on that scoring line. So possibly like first off up top is the tough part because
Okay.
Ua, who in the Chicago match did not look great, but Quinn Sullivan set up that goal perfectly for him to just literally let it fall off his foot and go in the back of the net. But you're hoping like situations like that boosts his confidence up right now. And I just think right now it's just a matter of being in game shape, being in game fitness right now. And I think that's going to take a couple matches for him to get there. But like, what about a Chris Donovan? I mean, last year they did a lot of Chris Donovan and Quinn Sullivan as your 2 forwards. And oh my God, those back lines were praying because those 2 kids running at you full force.
Right.
It gets very, it becomes a long match for you. But like, those are the type of moves that I would probably look at. Maybe, I mean, I wish we had Leon Flock. Like that's perfect spot to put in for Jack McGlynn, but we'll see what you're going to go with there. Maybe Bueno on that right-hand side. So I think that this lineup has to be more defensive oriented here.
Okay.
But I would like to see some type of rotation. I don't know how much I'm going to see though.
Yeah, don't be a betting man on that one. Oh, and Jazz, I'm sorry, I misunderstood you being the second half of the game. You're tuning in after 45. I get that now. Listen, I think here's some changes you can make. It is tough to change your back line, and Jack Elliott specifically, it's been about waiting till he gets to 100%. Damian Lowe and Jacob Glessens are at 100%, so there's no need to force Jack to come back.
Yeah.
If he is at 100%, and of course with them having played on Saturday and another game on Tuesday, I don't think that they've had enough time. They probably maybe put him through Sunday. They maybe put him through like some sort of a fitness thing or something that just mimics a game. And then maybe Monday today, as we're having this conversation, that he went through something a little bit more higher, like high intensity, but they don't really have time to see if he's game ready, essentially, because you don't have a whole week. You only have a couple of days. So I don't think we're going to see Jack Elliott. It would be nice if he was healthy.
I will say this.
If he's not healthy, I don't think we're going to see him because why would you rush him back?
Jim did say in today's presser he will have some type of role here. So I'm what I'm about to say, I think Renee's not going to like. But Renee, what if we see a 3-back set tomorrow night? You're trying to rotate. You're trying to put your best players out there still. You're having more of a defensive-oriented type of lineup, putting your 3 really good center backs.
Well, I did miss the presser because I was on the Philly show, and Jim was talking about, thank you. Jim was talking about Jack's status. So he seems like he is 100% ready.
He seems to think Jack will have some type of role on Saturday. What role
like as
that
a coach,
will be?
as a cheerleader, like as a player.
Water boy.
What kind of role? Is he the water boy? Like what kind of role is he throwing out towels to everybody? What is the role here?
So I'm just saying, like, what if we did see a 3-back set? Now, Saprissa, because of rotation, I'm assuming they did run a 3-back set on Saturday in their match. But we'll see if they go back. They run like the 4-2-3-1, I think. I mean, obviously you keep an eye out for Mariano Torres again here, who also got some rest there. But in general, like last 2 matches, if you just play with high intensity for all 90 minutes, like you're talking about a 3-1 win on Tuesday. You're talking about possibly a 3-2 win on Saturday. Yeah. So I think for me, Renee, it's just very simple. This Saprissa's obviously coming here trying to ruin our time. You got to come out there acting like you're down 3-1 and go out there and close out this match.
Yeah. I do think a 3-back could work, especially given the fact that it's such a quick turnaround. If you have a 3-back, you slot Jack Elliott in the back, and now you have Nate, or it could be Mbaizo. You could have Mbaizo or Nate out wide. Of course, Kai on the other side. Then your middies can be, I actually think I would go Jose, Jack, and maybe... You don't want to make too many changes. That's the other thing. Like, I just rattled off like 3 changes off the bat. So I think you got to keep it Jose, Jack, and Quinn. And then up top is Julian and Gazdag.
Okay.
But like see, I would be fine with maybe going, and actually Chicago played more of like a 4-2-3-1 and still were able to find guys wide open in the attack. But that's okay. We're not talking about that anymore. If you were going to like keep a 4-4-2, excuse me, and you slot Quinn Sullivan up top, give Ua a rest. He's coming off the bench. And maybe you slot in Jesus Bueno out wide. That's a simple move that can go a long way. And if Jack is ready, he doesn't want to pull off Damian or Jacob. I think that's the tough part. Like, that is hard as a coach when you have 3 center backs that are very good. And who do you pull? Because they are both playing well. I do think there were areas that I watched them play, especially Saturday. I'm like, oh, you didn't could have did something differently there. But it's not something that's major where you are having to actively pull one of them off. And so I would be okay with 3-5-2, play more defensive. It's a good point. Keep the same group, and now you bring in Jack Elliott's mix into the lineup, same midfield, and then maybe up top you just throw in Chris Donovan instead of like a Ua. Or no, actually no, because then 3-5-2 would be Gazdag and Karan's up top, and then Jack Elliott bumping in pushes everybody to the same spot.
So here's my concern.
If that makes sense.
When Jim finds something that works, he buries it into the ground.
There's not a lot of, and this is a group that has flexibility and versatility. You don't have to keep it the exact same.
But this lineup has essentially almost scored 7 goals if you count that Gazdag goal on Saturday. But like 6 goals in 2 matches, obviously something's working. So I just see Jim rolling with the same lineup here, especially like I'm with you. I would like to give Uwa some rest, but I think the way Jim sees it is I need to keep him out there and get more reps as much as possible.
And let me clarify. I don't think Uwa needs rest, as in a sense he's tired. I think Uwa needs rest in the sense it's time for a different look.
I do think I want 30 minutes of him in the second half tomorrow night, though, of some fresh Uwa. I would like that.
Exactly. I think it's just, I honestly don't feel like, I agree with Jim. I do feel like the guys are more fit than maybe we all expected. But in my opinion, it's just time for something different. It's been 2 games. I'm not saying change it all up, but slot in 2 or 3 guys. Jack Elliott's a tough one because, as we mentioned, center back is a role. You don't want to tamper with that too much. If guys are rolling, you want to keep them rolling. But even that, if the Union are up, let's say the Union go out, take care of business. Instead of trailing 1-0 at halftime, go in at halftime up 1 or 2-0. Now maybe Jack Elliott's coming in the second half to give one of the center backs a spell. They're done for the game. Now maybe you also can pull out, one of your forwards can come off and you can go more, and you'll still have the same intensity. You'll just have fresh legs. So you can also reverse it, and maybe you start the same. They go on and play with the same intensity that we saw in the second half. We saw them create a ton of opportunities, including those 2 that got called back, score, put them away, and then let's just have a nice fun ending.
As simple as that.
That's it, guys. That's it. That's all we're asking for.
I get concerned because Casala is a solid manager. He's good with his tactics too. So that's why like these type of matches, I don't like running with the same thing. But hey, it's worked in the past, and I'm sure it'll work tomorrow too if they do it. One thing to keep in mind is, listen, Deportivo Saprissa, they play in San Jose, Costa Rica. They're coming up here to Philadelphia, where it's gonna be cold tomorrow. All right, and we're gonna have. And I'm curious to see how many fans do come out. It's tough on a school night.
Yeah.
But it is Champions Cup, guys. Like, I mean, if you can, definitely come out. Use that Game Time app that Renee was talking about earlier. But that's what I'm really curious about. But I do think that will be a factor here too. Because listen, Saprissa could be, all excited, ready to upset special here. But the minute they step here at that Philadelphia, out of the Philadelphia airport, I should say, and they feel that cold, it's different. It's so hard to prepare for that.
That's true. And as you mentioned, game time tomorrow, 8:15 p.m. kickoff. Of course, which means it'll start like 8:20 because it doesn't ever start at the same time it's listed at.
Fox Sports too.
At Subaru Park on FS2 where you can check it out. And JP, as we get ready to wrap up and prepare for another game for the Philadelphia Union.
Yeah.
So how are you feeling about this game? What are your overall thoughts? What do you expect prediction-wise?
I do feel good about it. Obviously, it's a little nerve-wracking because you never know what can happen in these type of situations coming back. But I think that this team is playoff tested both in MLS Cup playoffs and in CCC or CCL, however you guys want to look at it. But I think that they are well tested enough that I think that they will be able to. You just got to close it out. It's not like you're down like 2-0.
Yeah.
Like you have the lead. You just got to close it out. I think the Union do. I could see like a 2-1 win tomorrow for the Union. They'll get 2.
Okay.
So pretty still get 1. That's obviously we know the away goal, but I think that they will have enough to get the win tomorrow.
Yeah. And as Jillian's mentioning, it should not be as cold as Saturday. Shout out to the fact that
Shouts to you,
Subaru
Jillian.
Park was packed on Saturday,
Good
even
job.
though it was chillier. It is finally getting warm. I do finally feel like I'm at a point now. I'm intentionally wearing my sweaters for the last time because I'm like, this is it. I feel like sweater season is coming to an end. So let me get all my wintry sweaters out of the way because it is finally getting like warm outside and sunny outside. But with that, I know Jazz, you're also mentioning, just to make sure I'm hitting on these last comments about Glesnes Fitness looking like he's struggling a little bit more post-surgery. Yeah, so overall, I do think it's going to be a good game. I'm excited for it. I feel like the Union are going to go out, take care of business. That's 2 games. They've been down 1-0 at half. It's time to get on the front foot, as Jim was talking about. Start on the front foot, come out aggressive, and come out, take care of business early, and win this. I think it's 2-1, but I think that 1 goal from Saprissa comes late in the game.
Yeah, I could see that happening too. A little later.
So we'll see what happens, guys.
Yeah.
Tuesday night, 8:15 p.m. at Subaru Park, the Philadelphia Union, leg 2 of the first round of CONCACAF Champions Cup action, taking on Deportivo Saprissa. Check that out. We'll be back on Thursday here, 3:30 p.m. So starting at our usual time on Thursday, we're going to start doing our Monday, Thursday schedule just around the game schedule. So back Thursday live, where you can tune in with us. So for us here at PHOI Union Podcast, Tyler, JP, myself, Renee, let's go Union! Win this game, advance to the round of 16, and let's make sure we can be in a nice happy mood as we progress into our next show on Thursday. So have a good one, guys. Let's go Union!
Y'all silly like the mayor.